more. And we're going to find out more about what happened to Alice Jackson. She left her home due to a profound paranormal experience, leading to the movie The House in Between. And joining us today on Good Things is the lead paranormal investigators, Cooney and John Bullard. Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having us.
I'm excited to have you here, although I'll admit the topic still kind of creeps me out, but I'm sure you get that all the time around this. But yet there's something super interesting that also intrigues us when we talk about this kind of activity. So let's just start with Alice. There may be some of us who are not familiar with The House in Between. I know you guys are fixing to release part 2. But Brad, take us from the beginning. How did you guys get introduced to Miss Alice Jackson?
Well, actually, I think John would be a better person to lead that off since he was there before me by a few years. So if you don't mind, let's let John.
Yeah, John, tell us how. Well, then, how did you get there?
Awesome. Yeah. So I've been doing. I've been in the paranormal for about 14 years now, and I got into it because I had childhood experience that kind of led me to this path, and validated some stuff as I was a young investigator. And I traditionally wanted to go to like historical sites like King's Tavern, that's in Natchez, Mississippi, here in our great state. We did a lot of stuff in Vicksburg, Mississippi, but we didn't do a lot of private residence cases because, number one, I'm an avid believer of the paranormal. However, there are crazy people out there. And we had a couple of bad experiences on a couple of private residence locations that we did. So we kind of just shied away from that, and I'm a big history person as well. So we started investigating locations that we just were excited to go to. But a friend of mine reached out and knew I did the paranormal gig, and they said that they had a friend of theirs who was a nurse, which Alice is a retired psychiatric nurse, that had some things going on in her house, and I was in Clinton at the time, so not too far away from Florence. So I thought, why not? This person was credible, and we went and met Miss Alice, and just the first time that I met her, I could tell that she was genuinely terrified, and listening to her story, I wanted to help her, and it helps that while we were inside the house, I was only in her house for 20 to 30 minutes, and I actually had an experience myself, which has never happened. Nothing's ever happened that quickly when I've been at a location. So I knew that, A, she was genuine, she was telling me the truth, and there was something different going on at Alice's house, and that really spawned what I've been doing now for over a decade in her house, and I have a very short-term attention span, so if something's kept me engaged and intrigued for over a decade, it's got to be something that's unique, and that's what Alice's house is every time we get in there, there's something that is unique and different. So it's been a journey, but a simple phone call led me to Alice's house. I could tell how genuine she was. We got an authentic, real haunting, and we just kind of went from there.
John, how long did Alice live in her home until she just had reached the brink of calling in for help?
The house was built in 1990, and that's what I love about Alice's house also, because it's not your traditional, like, Victorian mansion. It is a red A-frame house, a beautiful house. So she built it in the 90s, and even as they were constructing the house, they actually had paranormal things happen. Doorbells would ring, tools would move, doors would open. So there were small things here and there that kind of led up to the event where she saw lights in her bedroom that kind of pushed her over the top because she was so confused. You know, ghosts or spirits, one thing, but then when these lights appeared to her in her bedroom, she didn't know if it was UFO. She didn't know what was happening. She just had enough. So that was probably 2004 or 5. It was early 2000s when she decided to step away from the house, and actually she just couldn't live there anymore. As the things continued to increase, she just, she couldn't sleep. She literally was up during the day. She would try to sleep at night. She got no sleep, and she was just becoming like a zombie. So she had to get out of there and find a new place to go to bed.
How do you put that up on Realtor.com? Like, house comes with friends.
Right. Yeah. No. And it's interesting. Just again, if you meet Alice, she's one of the most kind, genuine, sweet, giving people, and just to see how scared she was of the house and embarrassed. When all this started, she reached out to me because I'm a weirdo. I'm a paranormal investigator, so we could link and connect. But, with her neighbors and just talking about this publicly, no matter where you are in the world or United States, but, we are in the Bible Belt, we're in Mississippi, and she felt like she would be looked at as like a lunatic or a crazy person saying there's lights and there's spirits in her house. So it's a cool thing to see the process from Alice being embarrassed and scared to kind of where this journey has taken us through the House in Between and leading into the House in Between 2.
Well, let's go with how it got to the House in Between Part 1, which I know is a huge success in terms of the movie. There's a lot of interest in this house and Alice's story and the work that you guys have been doing here in Mississippi. Were you guys surprised that many people wanted to see what you guys were up to or learn more about the story?
Yeah, I was, Brett. I'll let you answer after this. But, I was interested whenever the documentary came out because it was a different take. And working with Steve Gonzalez from Ghost Hunters and Kendall Welton, who's our cinematographer, which he worked on Ghost Hunters as well. So very talented people around us. And I think we knew we had A, talented people, B, we had a genuine story which is Alice's story, and C, we had a true haunting. So we were excited to highlight that. But whenever the first film came out, Steve from Ghost Hunters and Kendall both had the idea to not make it full paranormal, not a jump scare, but we wanted it to be more of like a human interest story on Alice. We wanted to show Alice's story and then also mix in the paranormal and the science as well. So when a lot of people jumped and watched it, we were scared that the huge paranormal fans would kind of be disappointed, but it was actually quite the opposite because it's just something that was so different. Having the human interest with Alice and having her and her story, and then really the mixture of science we brought in with the paranormal, kind of put it all in the melting pot, and I think that was kind of a recipe for success. And it is crazy to think that, we have the love that we do here in the state of Mississippi. We also have it in the country, but then also internationally. Brad, I think you can attest to this too, but I've had people all over the world who've watched this, and it just kind of blows your mind how far Alice's story has reached the entire world.
Yeah, Brad, share us your part of this because you've joined us here on Good Things prior when Part 1 was released or gearing up to release, and you were already getting great buzz about people's interest in the House in Between.
Yeah, it's been really quite a journey. Actually, quite mind-blowing how big the first film got. The thing is, people need to keep in mind, this is my 7th year investigating the house. And beginning my 7th year, and we didn't have any interest whatsoever in making a film. We were in there for years before the documentary was even an idea. So once Steve got involved, of course, everybody who's interested in paranormal activity watches the TV shows. Steve Gonzalez is very, very, very famous in the field. He's one of the best investigators in the world. So when he came down, that was a complete game changer. It just once he hooked us up with Kendall Welton, who's actually the co-director in our new film with Steve, it just really took off. So the first film, it just blew up. I mean, there was a real, I guess there was a hunger for it or something because it really took off. Plus, the film was so well done. It got almost 1 million views on YouTube already, and they just put that up for free on YouTube, and it's almost at 1 million views already. And this is a film that we released in 2020, and on Amazon it's a 4 out of 5, I think 6,000 reviews on it. So very, very surprising, but very, we're happy that it did so well. And some of the best reviews we got, ironically, is from people who don't believe in the paranormal, from skeptics, because what John was saying, they're very appreciative that we didn't just go all paranormal. We brought in world-renowned physicists and geologists and Walt Grayson. Everybody knows who Walt is in Mississippi. He's in the film, so we didn't leave any stone unturned. I think that's why it did so well.
Well, I think, too, when you start to have anything that's surrounding a mystery, right? I mean, murder mysteries have just taken off like wildfire, from podcast to TV interest to, real-life stories. I think anytime you have something that can take people's minds off of the everyday and help them sort of try to figure something out or stretch their imagination or their understanding, I think you've got a recipe for success, especially if it's done well. Right, and that it feels like that's what you guys have done with the story. John, you talk about, though, wanting to help Alice. What is and I know that will probably bleed into Part 2, and we're coming up on a hard break, and we're right here at the hard break. So you guys are going to stick with us. We're going to find out how these guys are helping Alice in the House Between Part 2 coming up next. more. We're finding out more about The House in Between Part 2, which is coming out for release at the end of June. It's about Alice Jackson of Mississippi, who left her home due to profound paranormal experiences. She called in the experts, and they are with us. We have Brad Cooney and John Bullard. They are lead paranormal investigators on her property for Brad, 7 years. John, you said 14 in the business or 10 at Alice's house. Did I get that right?
Yeah, basically, you could basically say at Alice's. I was still in my first year whenever I got linked to Alice's house. So I was still a very green, very fresh investigator.
So poor Alice has been paying a mortgage for 14 years in a house she hasn't lived in. That sounds terrible. Has she found another home? I'm worried about Alice now.
Yeah. So she has another house that she stays at, and Alice is just very, very, she's very savvy. So she knows how to navigate things, this, that, and the other. And people have asked her and asked us, why didn't she sell the house? And for a while there, she actually had people who would come and they would try to spend the night there. They were like traveling nurse friends of hers, and it was never really successful. But she's also gotten to the point now where it's pushed her out of her home, but she also built this home for her family. So she wants the answers, and she's almost, it's a dream come true for us as investigators, because it's almost like she's opened up the house to us as a paranormal laboratory of sorts, and we've been able to kind of, what we believe, it sounds crazy, kind of teach the spirits that are in the house. So that's why she hasn't sold it. She thinks that, and I think she's right, we can make a difference, and we can kind of push the field further at her location. So that's kind of where we're at.
So let's talk about the Helping Alice, because this is kind of what got you drawn into her story anyway, John, was the fact that you felt like you wanted this lady to be able to enjoy her home, or at least piece together the puzzle. So, and I know you're not going to give away much about part 2 for various reasons, but walk us through here on Good Things. Like, how are you helping Alice? I know that you're learning a lot. I think that's great for your profession and your industry. But at the end of the day, like, what's the ultimate goal for getting Alice back into her house, or just maybe unlocking the answers? Or really, is it kind of a fluid question to be answered?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I think, again, seeing her confidence, so showing her that, the first few times that I came in as an investigator, we were able to capture things on film. We were able to capture audio voices. So I think the validation that she's not crazy, that there was something actually happening in her house, and we were able to document it, I think that kind of gave her a little boost of confidence, because when you know you're not crazy, you feel better about yourself. And then as the journey goes on, having Brad come in, myself, Amy Bullard, Sabrina, who's done stuff with us as well, having a group of people kind of hone in on her house and kind of lock arms with her. And in a weird way, Alice has almost become an investigator herself, because the house responds to Alice. It loves Alice. Whenever we have Alice in the house, we have a higher percentage chance of things happening. So it's one of those things where you take the fear away from it, and you kind of get that confidence, and it's her taking her house back one step at a time. And that's kind of the journey that we've been on, slow and steady, is to kind of guide her back into the house and try to understand, like, what is happening. Because at the end of the day, it's rare, but in Alice's case, there's a reason that there's a haunting and there's something attached to Alice's house. And, that's our job to try to figure out, can we help whatever's here? Can we stop it? Can we minimize it? Can Alice take control of her environment and actually move back into her house? So that's kind of the waves that we've been navigating through.
Brad, let's talk about part 1. Set the stage for us. What do we see? Because I feel like those listening to Good Things are probably going to want to go back and watch part 1 if they hadn't seen and The House in Between the first. And then set the stage without giving it away for what you see different or further explained in the story in part 2 that's coming up at the end of June.
That's a great question. So basically part 1 was the beginning of trying to help Alice get back into her home. And, of course, Steve Gonzalez got involved and Kendall Welton got involved. And so we basically, me and John, we did so much for so many years, it was time to go to somebody else who has even more expertise than we do, people that's been doing it a lot longer. And to be honest, I'll speak for myself, there's somebody who's a much better paranormal investigator than me, which definitely Steve Gonzalez is. So that was pretty much the plan. We brought him in. And he brought his ideas with him, and he got in there and had some pretty profound experiences right away from his first day in there, which is kind of a pattern because that's happened to me and John and now Steve, where activity happens pretty quick when you first go in there. So and we brought in other people, like we brought in Walt Grayson, of course, the local meteorologist, because we wanted to look at the science side of things also. And we brought in some world-renowned physicists. We brought in Dr. Dye, who's a local physicist at Jackson State University. So we wanted to bring in science, and we wanted to tackle the paranormal side of it, investigate this thing, with the ultimate goal is to try to figure out how we can get Alice to be comfortable enough to get back into her home. So that was pretty much the setting for part one. And part two is basically we're just expanding on that, and we brought in some more experts. And I can say without spoiling, because this is in the trailer, we brought in Dustin Pari, who's a very, very popular and very good and famous, in fact, paranormal investigator. He was on Ghost Hunters International TV show and some other ones. And then we have Elizabeth Saints in this new one, who's just a brilliant person. She actually builds paranormal equipment. She's such a genius. And she was on Ghost of Shepherdstown, which is another show that was on Travel Channel. So we brought in some more experts. Basically, excuse me, I got a little something in my throat. So basically, it's just a continuation of part one, and some pretty exciting things happen in part two. I can't get into specifics, but it'll make people's jaws open up, that's for sure. It's pretty intense stuff.
When you talk about the equipment that you use or the science sort of behind it, I understand some of the experts you brought in, but what is some of the equipment that you use? I mean, I'm guessing it's not something that we can find at our local, box store or, or that we already have at our home that we can put together. I mean, what are you using?
So there's a lot of different types of equipment. There's equipment that can measure barometric pressure drops, temperature changes. There's a device called a REM pod that'll it's got like a little invisible force field around it, and if you put your hand close to the antenna without even touching it, it'll set off alarms. So we use those to see if any kind of energy pockets can breach that force field to set off these REM pods. There's of course digital recorders, which are great for recording voices, electronic voice phenomenon with EVPs. Just various. John, help me out. Did I miss a few?
No, that's pretty much it. Obviously, we have Alice's house we have wired up with IR cameras, so they shoot in the daytime. They also shoot at night. They have a little heightened infrared, so basically you're shooting 4K, beautiful pictures in the dead of night. And, one of the people always ask, why do you do investigations at night? And number one, yes, it is creepier. But number two, there's light anomalies, which have been said to be spirits, which we've documented because they have energy, because they've gone into some of our devices and drained the batteries, which you've heard of before, I'm sure. But yes, Brad, I think you covered pretty much everything. What we also love the voice recorder you mentioned, Brad. We love capturing EVPs, which are spirit voices, and that's one of the most authentic things. I think what we've done, the field has come such a long way. There's so many gadgets out there now. Brad and myself are kind of purists, and we use what we need to document, but we also like to let the house do itself, just kind of naturally have things happen. But with EVPs is interesting because we've been able to document and record the same male and female voice over the years. And what's interesting about your vocal tone, just like your fingerprints are unique, so that's why they fingerprint you if you get arrested, your vocal tone is also unique. So it's interesting that we've been able to capture the same vocal tone patterns for several years with a male and a female voice at the property. You
said take the fear out of it, John, earlier for you and Alice. How in the bejesus are you not scared out of your mind when you start hearing male and female voices on a recorder or whatever? I mean, how do you lean into this and not run to church?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not great at a lot of things, but this is something that I've always felt like that I've been meant to do. Like I said, as a child, I would see shadow figures. I would hear voices. And I'm not a medium. I think there's people out there that have a special skill set. Not very many, but there are a few different people. And I actually wrote a book on the paranormal called A Peek Through the Veil. And that's kind of what I coined my phrase. So I get little insights of things that happen, and I can't hone it. I can't make it happen. But it's just something that's always been a part of me since I can remember. So just validating it and then just kind of documenting it and showing it to the rest of the world that this stuff is real. We're capturing it, and we love skeptics, Brad, myself. If you don't believe in the paranormal, that's fantastic. We always say, come hang out with us at Alice's house. We might change your mind.
I probably won't take you up on that offer, but I will take you up on an offer to hang out with us just a little bit longer, if that's okay, boys.
Yeah, that's great.
All righty, stick with us. We got more with Brad and John coming up next. And we're learning everything we need to know about The House in Between Part 2. It is a movie that will be streaming coming up later this month. And joining us is still Mr. Brad and John, who are lead paranormal investigators for the movie. And before we go any further, where do we go ahead and pre-order? Because I've missed that. If we want to be the first to be able to see The House in Between Part 2.
The best way to do it is just go to thehouseinbetween.com. And there's a pre-order link right there at thehouseinbetween.com. It can be pre-ordered on iTunes right now. And it releases June 21st. We're not quite sure yet which exact platforms. It'll be on a ton of platforms, though. That's our directors are still figuring that out with the distribution company. So it's not really our thing on that part. But, yep, thehouseinbetween.com is where you can go and pre-order.
Can you go ahead and start watching Part 1 if you're behind?
Yeah, for sure. Part 1 is actually, you can see it for free on YouTube now, on a YouTube channel called Absolute Documentaries. We're just under 1 million views. They just put that up about 5 months ago, and we're almost at 1 million views already over there. So you can watch it free. You can also catch it for free on Tubi, and I believe still on Pluto TV.
All righty, so there's some ways to at least get caught up in gearing up for the Part 2. You were talking about John skeptics, and you love a good skeptic. You've got several on our C Spire text line, though, that are right there with you. Jeff in Oxford, one of our favorites, says his house is absolutely haunted. Jeff never invite me over. He said he has a lady wearing a white gown. She's not harmful, but just mischievous. And I'm at the point where it's like, okay, I don't feel left out. I don't need a friend of that nature in my home or anywhere that I'm spending my day. But like, at what point do you know that it's okay, and that can they move into like not okay? I think it's like when's it time to get scared?
Well, so there's different things. Here's what I'll say. I've been doing this, like I said, for 14 years, and Hollywood does a great job, and there's a lot of demonic stuff and scary stuff. And the reality of, at least from what I've experienced, and I've investigated all over the country and out of the country as well, a true demonic haunting, something pure evil or something that can harm you, that's like winning the Powerball. Yes, there are people who win the Powerball, but it's extremely, extremely rare. So most of your cases of hauntings, there's two types. There's residual, which is like a broken record, like stairs creaking or something, a noise that you hear, but there's no intelligent response. So you have residual, and then the other side there's intelligence, and intelligent haunting, which is self-explanatory. It's intelligent. You can have communication, and it could be somebody who's attached to the land or the house or an object. So when do you know it's not okay? When we come into a lot of locations, a lot of the owners who have some type of haunting, if they take action and take control of their house and they verbally communicate that this is my house, you're not welcome here, something as simple as that can actually diminish the activity, if not 100%, like 80%. So from most of the cases that I've seen, it doesn't necessarily go away, but you can definitely take control. And then at the end of the day, we're a lot more powerful, and we hold the key to our success and happiness, even if you're in a haunted location.
You use the word validation a lot, which I feel like there's going to be some just listening to good things who's like, yes, me too. And it's one of those where if you hear the creak or you see the lights or you have the experience at a certain age, you kind of just tuck it away and file it back with, nobody's going to believe me about that. And you don't want to talk about it because it can be a little odd. Do you guys find the more that this gets out, the more the house in between, gains popularity, that more and more folks are coming out, raising their hand and saying, me too?
Yes. And Brad, I'll let you speak on this if you want to, but I'm going to jump in first. I remember we used to do little meet and greets whenever I was in the paranormal, and we were at a haunted house, I think in Weston, Mississippi one time. This is years ago. And we were set up at the line of the haunted house, so people were waiting to go into the haunted house, and we were showing our actual audio and video evidence of the paranormal stuff that we've done around the state. And I just remember there was a guy, he was like a big old country guy, had a cowboy hat on, and he was just staring at me from like 10 people back in the line. And I was like, this guy thinks we're stupid. Like, he hates us. He was just, like, glaring at us the whole time. I was mortified by the time he got to the table. But he got to the table, and he, like, let it all out. He had had so many paranormal experiences, but he didn't want to talk about it to anybody, but he obviously knew that's what we did. So it's funny the people that you make connections with. And I would say, 10 to 15 people, if you talk to them, I would say 80% or more have had a paranormal experience or know somebody who's had an experience. So it's one of those things you don't really talk about until you're like, if it's Halloween season, these things come up, or if you come to one of our tours to do a paranormal investigation, all your stories come out. But it is exciting to see, again, Alice, she's like a celebrity. In Florence, like, she was at the grocery store the other day and somebody got recognized. I think one of the little girls ran up to her and said, "Is your house haunted?" and ran off, and Alice has got a kick out of it. So it really is neat to see the demeanor of her now versus where she was back then. And yes, especially even in Mississippi, I mean, we're kind of blessed to be where we are to do the paranormal, because think about all the tragedy, unfortunately, that's happened here with the Civil War and everything. And, Natchez and Vicksburg alone, the things that are still standing. I mean, McRaven the original part of that was built in the 1700s. So there's a lot of history on the land that we live.
And not all of it has left. And Brad, you found the same thing, that folks, there's more that have had experiences than not?
Yeah. The thing I appreciate, and I'm going to brag on you a little bit, Rebecca, just having a reputable radio show like yours give us an opportunity to get on here and talk about it is progress, because 15, 20 years ago, it would be very difficult to get an interview like this from mainstream media. So I do think paranormal field, just like the UFO, field is also getting a little more respect, and they're starting to get actual looks by Congress and things like that now. Paranormal field's not quite there as far as spirit activity goes, but we're trending in the right direction, and having interviews like this is a big help, so I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, who am I to tell you you're wrong? I'm not trying to prove nobody right or nobody wrong, but I do feel like, I mean, when you hear enough folks that are coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, even just on the text line, that says that, they've had undeniable experiences, I am not here to say that you are wrong. It's, and it's interesting just where the science has sort of come, and you hear about the different stories that overlap. And, I am a big enough girl to say I do not have the answers for everything. And so I think it's,
right.
I think it's cool that, you have these different areas of science and investigation, and a neat way to put Mississippi on the map. Strange way, but good way.
That's my point. My point is, it's not whether or not you believe or don't believe, and I'm talking specifically of you, Rebecca. It's just great that we have a radio program that gives us the opportunity to come on here and gives us a fair shake and lets us tell the world what's happening in there. I've had some interviews in the past where within 30 seconds of starting, I knew that that they were like skeptics and they were going to play real hardball and not very respectful. So that's not the case here, so we appreciate that. But yeah, I think it's definitely trending in the right direction to where more mainstream media are taking a look at this, and there's more scientists taking a look at this, and physicists are taking a look at it. So I'm pretty happy with the progress, but we still have a ways to go.
Well, 14 years of studying one house. I mean, that's pretty impressive and long tenured. It's not like you just found this last week. And if they can still be digging at Oak Island and still not find the treasure, I think every treasure hunt has its place to be acknowledged. But you got a lot of interest. I think it's pretty cool. And so just rounding back to where folks can, they can watch the part 1, they can get ready for part 2. And, one day, guys, you're going to have to get Allison here. I would love to meet her. I don't want to go home with her, but I would love to meet her.
Yeah, that sounds great. So everybody can catch the first film still. Again, you can go to YouTube and look up the YouTube channel called Absolute Documentaries and just scroll down a little bit. Or you can go to Tubi to stream it and Pluto TV. And it's still available on Amazon Prime, but I don't think it's free there. And then, of course, if you want to pre-order part 2, go to thehouseinbetween.com, and that'll take you right to the pre-order link.
All right. Well, John, I appreciate your time, too, today on Good Things, as well as Brad. You always keep me updated with what's going on. We'll be anticipating the fury that comes after your release, and good luck to you guys.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Everybody watch The House in Between, and we cannot wait for the world to see what we did for The House in Between, too.
And that's all happening right here in Mississippi. I mean, that's pretty impressive and pretty cool. So congratulations, you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
And Jeff says his is an intelligent haunting. And he's right. He's not afraid because his strength he has in his faith. I think it doesn't matter where you fall. It's one of those things where, you just got to be open-minded enough to at least hear it out. And, who are we to say what's real or sort of not real for people's experiences? If nothing else, I think it's cool that Mississippi is at the forefront of this when it comes to good cinematography and good movie making and all the storytelling that goes into making a documentary excel in that way. And I'm happy too they didn't take the whole, what was the one where they ran through the woods?
Blair Witch Project?
Yeah, which I know that's not necessarily haunting. And go the scary route. They went let's inform you route. And I think that's one reason why it's successful. All right, you guys stick with this. We've got some good headlines for you coming up next.